20th of October, 1969, Yarm. It's a beautiful autumn. Sometimes I get angry by the cold, say about 3 in the morning when my back or my knees freeze. But autumn is very nice, and I may be changing too, which is probably because I am going soft in the head, because I am beginning to like the truth about some things. I mean about those things where I didn't like it before, and on the other hand, it doesn't bother me that I am poor, and everyone has many more material things, and it seems to me that as soon as I begin to have more, I will also have less, and that I'll become even more bitter than I am. Mainly because some people don't have what I have. To be precise, that I'll be angry that someone has less than me, and that I'll envy him. I also think that I like that one woman quite a bit, but I don't even envy those guys their women, because they seem like very strange women, and I'm glad that I have hands and all the rest. Now, here in this waiting room, where I go, my stomach is rumbling terribly, and everybody is moving, looking for a seat far from me. This morning I devoured a piece of bread that I got and some milk, which I don't mind because I'm not hungry. The woman was completely freckled everywhere, even on her knees. I'm very well, thank you. I'll kick your ass. And no, very well, thank you. I don't like these chicken shit people. They're afraid of having their asses kicked. Well, hello and welcome to this week's A Photographic Life. And that was a short reading from the very first entry of a new book, Josef Koudelka, Diaries. Now, I know on this podcast that I often talk about photographers from the past with the idea that you're going to know about them. But I'm also aware that even if you study photography, you may not be aware of them. So a very brief pen portrait here about Josef Koudelka, who was born in Czechoslovakia in 1938. He began his career as an aeronautical engineer and started photographing gypsies in his spare time in 1962, before turning full-time to photography in the late 1960s. In 1968, Koudelka photographed the Soviet invasion of Prague, publishing his photographs under the initials PP, standing for Prague Photographer. In 1969, he was anonymously awarded the Overseas Press Club's Robert Capa Gold Medal for the photographs. Koudelka left Czechoslovakia seeking political asylum in 1970, and shortly thereafter he joined Magnum Photos. In 1975, his first book, Gypsies, was published, and subsequent titles include Exiles, Chaos, Invasion 68, Prague, and Wall, and most recently in 2020, Ruins. Koudelka has won major awards such as the Prix Nadar, Grand Prix National de la Photographie, the Grand Prix Cartier-Bresson, and the Hasselblad Foundation International Award in Photography. Exhibitions of his work have been held at the Museum of Modern Art and the International Centre of Photography, New York, the Hayward Gallery in London, the Stedelijk Museum of Modern Art, Amsterdam, the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, the Art Institute of Chicago, and Museum of Decorative Arts in the National Gallery, Prague. In 2012, he was named Commandeur de l'Ordre, des Arts et des Lettres. My French is not great, by the French Ministry of Culture and Communication, and he's currently based in Paris and Prague. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago about this book, Josef Koudelka Diaries, which is published by Aperture in New York. Now, it's not cheap. It's about £50, and it's quite a small book. It's not a book of photographs. It's a book of words, but I actually feel that it's the most important book on photography that I think I've ever read. It's not an easy read. It's not necessarily something you'll read in chronological order. You might dip in and out. It is a facsimile, a translation of his actual diaries. And I think in doing so, it gives you insight into every aspect of the reality of working as a photographer. You may have just heard me there opening the book again, because I'm going to finish with the last entry in the book. This is from the 14th of November 2020. They say that if you are over 80 years old and nothing hurts, it means you're dead. Sure, you can get tired more often. You are getting physically weaker. You forget, but you can think, and your eyes, even though they are getting weaker, still recognize what is visually good and what isn't. It's fantastic. Not even now at 82, I can still do what I want to do, and that I've actually done what I wanted to do my whole life, and I've enjoyed it immensely. That's Josef Koudelka. I think you've got to go and buy that book. A few weeks ago, Bill Shapiro and I, in our conversation, were talking about, dissecting, giving advice around how to sell your photography as prints and how print selling, buying, curating, collecting works. Well, it seems to have been very popular with you. Thank you very much for everybody who has responded. I'm going to read a couple of the responses a little bit later on in our regular listeners' letters. But it also sent me down a little bit of a rabbit hole, because a lot of you were asking me about the idea of a series and how a series works and how it's numbered and so forth, which is something Bill and I spoke about. But I'm going to bring you a report here that I found, which I think is quite interesting and perhaps also brings more insight into that discussion. So it begins like this. In March 2012, a US district judge dismissed collector John Sobel's complaint against celebrated fine art photographer William Eggleston. The lawsuit stemmed from allegations that Eggleston diluted the value of Sobel's limited edition Eggleston prints when Eggleston created additional reprints derived from the same images, but of a different size, medium, and print date. Between 2008 and 2011, Sobel purchased 8 limited edition prints by Eggleston, each numbered on the bottom with a fraction. According to Sobel, the photograph's limited edition status was a motivating factor in his decision to purchase the prints. Indeed, the 16 by 20 each prints are believed to be created directly from the original negative using a dye transfer process and have an aggregate fair market value of roughly $850,000. In 2012, Eggleston entered into a consignment agreement with Christie's auction house for the purpose of selling digital reprints that were identical to the 8 limited edition photographs in Sobel's collection, but created using digital scans and an inkjet printer, and they were significantly larger at 44 by 60 inches. These images ultimately fetched approximately $5.9 million at auction. Arguing that the fraction on the bottom of the works he purchased represented a maximum number of each work that could be printed, Sobel filed a suit. According to Sobel, the creation and sale of the reprints substantially diminished the monetary value and uniqueness of his limited edition works. Eggleston moved to dismiss the complaint in its entirety. Sobel sought relief under a defined terms section, which defines the meaning of the term limited edition work, but accords no cognizable right or remedy for recovery. Nevertheless, the court observed that Sobel's claim would similarly fail under the plain and unambiguous, dismissed it accordingly. In essence, Eggleston's subsequent production of reprints was ratified by the very statute Sobel sought to enforce. In dismissing Sobel's claim, he requested the court look at the legislative... I keep tripping over my words today. I don't know why. Anyways, because it's very hot when I'm recording this. History, which it declined to do. relying on the plain meaning of the statute. The legislative record from 1981 was drafted to provide certain consumer safeguards, confirming that limited edition prints give rise to an assumption on the part of the purchaser that the producing plate will not be utilised again and may be cancelled or destroyed after the edition is produced to ensure its limited character. Photographs, unlike lithographs, which are reproduced from plates that wear out and degrade after multiple printings, can of course be reprinted from a negative and now a digital file without any loss of image quality. Dealers and collectors have imposed limited editions on the fine art of photography in order to create rarity and higher prices. While there were meant to be safeguards, the language relating to limited editions and how to account for photographic print editions that can be created in many sizes and with a variety of printing methods was never clear, leaving each artist to determine his or her own method. While the court's decision may leave more uncertainty for collectors, it clarified for the first time that a photographer can create new works using different methods of printing and size. What is most important is to provide as much information to the consumer about the size of the edition, the process of how it was created, and whether prior editions have been created. And now it's time for listeners' letters. I feel as if I should have some kind of a theme tune. Maybe I'll think about that for when the listeners' letters are going to be approaching. Anyway, talking about photographic prints, a message came in via Instagram from RDR. I think it's RDRS. Not sure. Slightly strange tagline there. But anyway, they said this about our episode talking about photographic prints. My personal approach is you are a musician. Stage 1, driving yourself to the gig. You do it all. Price to pay is wrangled between you and the venue. Sometimes it's just free beer. Stage 2, take the tour bus. Almost famous-ish. Song in rotation on local radio. An uptick on Spotify plays. AKA a museum has acquired your photo. Swan Galleries has auctioned a print you sold previously, etc. How does that affect your pricing? Stage 3, black car limo. If you're good, maybe lucky, you need to step away from a DIY approach and sign some paperwork, get an agent, decide on representation. You do the music, trust, but verify others to do the rest. Pricing of your work at this level is better done by others. One last soapbox ramble. Don't let pricing become a false idol. Push that shutter button because you love taking pictures. Couldn't agree more. The next letter came in response, I suppose, to the conversation that Fiona Hayes and I have every month concerning Seesaw and photographic exhibitions that you might like to go and check out. Fiona does the hard work. I just talk to her about it. So this letter says, Dear Grant, I enjoy your Seesaw episodes with Fiona Hayes. The insights into artists, gallerists and curation are interesting to listen to. I do wonder what your thoughts are on the artworks themselves. For instance, a Sarah Moon exhibit was mentioned, but the print medium was not discussed. This may be a granular comment, but did Fiona notice what type of prints these were? Or did the prints themselves strike Fiona as being of exceptional quality? My guess is that these were carbon transfer prints made by Todd Gangler. If they were carbon prints, they would have had a particular look. I have to say, knowing Sarah Moon's work, I think they probably were. But anyway, the letter goes on. The quality of the prints themselves, not just the medium, but how the works were rendered, matters. Tone, scale, detail and saturation are aspects of the work that you may want to comment on. More or less is up to you, of course. Thanks for the episode and work you put into your podcast. P.S. An artist's website is not as good as seeing a print, which makes comments about the print itself meaningful. P.P.S. A Joel Metovitz exhibit was also mentioned. Several years ago I saw his prints at an APAD show. Type C prints were terrible. The prints were so flat they looked like mush. At the time, Cibachrome or dye transfer prints could have been made, but they weren't. Anyway, that's a comment on the look and feel of the current prints. Would have been interesting to compare and contrast with his previous prints. Also, as per your chat with Bill Shapiro, the prints were not numbered as part of an edition, and that's from somebody called Claude. So thank you very much, Claude, I think, for some really good ideas. I'll have a chat with Fiona about that, and maybe we'll include a little bit more information about the actual prints and how they're made in future episodes of Seesaw, which will begin again in October of this year when all of the exhibitions start up again. And the conversation with Bill Shapiro will kick off in the first week of October also. So Fiona will be back third week of October. Bill will be back first week of October. In the meantime, over August, I've got a real treat, I think, for you, which is each episode is a compilation of a range of different photographs answering. See, I keep tripping up this week. I've obviously drunk far too much coffee this morning. Anyway, answering the question, what does photography mean to me, that we used to have on the podcast every month. I've revisited it and I've put together different photographers from very varied backgrounds. I think you'll find it really interesting. I know I did, to hear those different responses straight after each other. So those are our summer specials, which will take you all the way through until September. Then, starting in September, we've got some fantastic guests contributing conversation, information to the podcast. I've already been recording a few of those, trying to get organised. And I can tell you some really, really, truly great icons of photography will be joining the podcast. One of which even reached out to me and asked if they could be on the podcast. So that was really fantastic. I think really in the world in which we are at the moment, photography's never been more important, has it, as evidence and as documentation. I'm involved in a lot of conversations at the moment with different people talking about photography. And I have to say, it's forcing me to accept some things that I don't particularly like. The idea of being a content creator, the idea of photography within digital marketing, all of these things, I suppose in a sense, as photographers, we could be a little bit touchy about. I don't think we should be. I think we are going to need, and I certainly am, going to embrace these ideas of collaboration across different areas of the creative industries with our photography, even if that means having to accept some semantics, some language, which may feel slightly condescending to the medium. I don't know. I'll leave you to think about that as to whether or not you feel that you need to evolve your practice, develop your practice, or just stay where you are. As always, we are a democratic church here, church with a very small c, I should say. We're open to all opinions as long as they're considered and informed. And, of course, I'm going to suggest over the coming week, please take care.